Information about Shadow the Hedgehog's conception is weirdly scarce. Shadow is the brainchild of Sonic Adventure 2's director Takashi Iizuka, writer Shiro Maekawa, and artist Yuji Uekawa, who created the final look of the character. The initial idea behind Shadow, as explained by Maekawa in a Sonic Channel article, was that they were going to create a character that was at least as cool as Sonic, and interestingly, was planned to be a very delicate and pure character, which is a bit of a far cry from what he would later become. Now, I don't necessarily want to spend too much time on Shadow's physical character as much as I just want to focus on the name, because that's where things start to get really interesting for me. In looking up Shadow's origins, it's pretty common to see that before being named Shadow, the titular hedgehog was named Terios pretty early on, which apparently translates to reflection of in Greek, which is pretty cool, although I've actually had a pretty hard time finding any validity in this, as when I go on Google and I look it up and translate, all I get is that it has something to do with fulfilling a wish, but I'm not Greek, so what do I know? The validity of his name, though, can be further backed up thanks to a forum post on Sonic Retro by Darkspine35, who explains that all of Shadow's main model files start with the name Terios. This can actually be further proven by actually just going into the texture files and seeing that all of Shadow's textures are named Terios text, which is pretty cool to see. This here indicates that Shadow might have been Terios for quite some time before his name changed. Now, it would be easy to assume that Shadow in a sense has always existed, just under a different name. But that's where things get a bit confusing, because Shadow actually existed in a different physical sense than this hedgehog. And to look at the original Shadow, we actually have to look at another character, a much bustier character than Shadow, and that of course is Rouge of all people. So one thing that I've heard is that Rouge's initial name was actually Nails. We can see this a lot online, and it's a bit of a weird name in my opinion. This isn't just some schoolyard rumor though, because we can see it on the Sonic Retro page about Sonic Adventure 2, which goes into pretty deep detail about the game's development and is typically pretty accurate. We can also see it in a decade-old Rooster Teeth video right here.
Fact number 3, Shadow was originally named Terios, which means reflection of, and Rouge was originally named Rouge the Bat, in direct reference to Knuckles' name. Is it Rouge or Rogue?
I can't actually find any real concrete proof about Nails being Rouge's initial name in any way. I don't actually want to doubt that this is real because it does somehow actually sound like a real Sonic name, but in looking this up, I can't find anything discussing this. There isn't an interview, all the textures are named Rouge, there isn't any old promotional stuff referring to her as Nails, and so I have actually no real idea where this Nails name came from. Now, where does this leave us regarding Shadow? Because ultimately, this is a video on Shadow, not on Rouge. Well, let me explain to you by showing what might be one of the weirdest things, which is a Tumblr post I found that actually sparked this whole journey for me. On this official Sonic Tumblr page, which has a link to Google Plus of all places, 5 years ago they posted concept art of Shadow the Hedgehog and Rouge the Bat. There's nothing too out of place when it comes to a post like this. It's just kind of a fun look into the past, posted by a big corporation. The description is pretty bland, it calls them both Shadow and Rouge, but things get interesting when we look into the tags and a whole second story unfolds, which is something that I've never heard before. The tags, which, reminder, are set by this official page with an official Google Plus attached to it, explain that Rouge was initially called Shadow before Terios would be Shadow, and when Terios would actually become Shadow, Rouge would become Rouge. Is that confusing enough for you yet? Sorry, editing Sam here. It's just, I also wanted to add that the Tumblr Sonic account still regularly posts stuff, such as this absolute banger here.
None of this is good, Vector. That's why it's called war.
Interestingly, there's no mention of Nails or Terios actually in this post at all. We of course know that Shadow was once Terios, but this does little to anything to prove the validity of the name Nails, and instead just shows that Rouge actually once held the name of Shadow, which in my opinion really doesn't fit her character unless they had a very different idea for her. Except actually maybe it does fit that one dominatrix costume she has in Sonic Adventure 2. Now furthermore, we could actually find more of the same concept art that was shared on that Tumblr page in Sonic's 25th anniversary concept art book. And this is way too expensive for me to buy and actually look into. Fortunately, I was able to find a couple photos of it online that somebody posted of their copy. And when we look at this early concept art of Shadow with bangs, which oh my god, imagine if that's what he ended up looking like. It's shown that the book does talk about the two characters' appearance in Sonic Adventure 2. However, unfortunately, the book doesn't seem to really focus much on the concept of their characters' names, as it mostly just focuses on the concept art of the characters, and so instead it just refers to these two characters as Shadow and Rouge. Perhaps somewhere in this book it talks about Terios, Nails, or Rouge being Shadow, but unfortunately not in any of the images I could find. Ultimately, this was just a really interesting thing that I stumbled upon, and I honestly haven't heard anybody talk about this ever, which is kind of strange, because you would think that the fact that a character like Rouge once had Shadow's name would be a much more common fact that would be known within the community. If you have any other information regarding this, such as where I might find some evidence of the name Nails or further information on Rouge being called Shadow, then please, of course, let me know. I love learning about this. This was a really interesting adventure for me to go on, because for such titular characters, there really isn't much information on either of these characters, and although I did my best researching, I'm sure there's something tucked away in some deep nook or cranny of the internet, or maybe hidden in some kind of physical media that I honestly just could not find anything on that I might have missed. If you enjoyed this kind of content though, and this look into more obscure character facts, I would really suggest watching my video surrounding the character of Madonna, who was once Sonic's original girlfriend, and of course feel free to check out any of my other stuff. If you've been enjoying these more obscure dives into different character things, or you have any suggestions for future videos like this, then please, of course, let me know. These videos have been a ton of fun to make, and I'd love to check out more stuff if the interest is there. Of course, if you liked what you watched, it would mean the world to me if you liked, subscribed, or whatever, but at the end of the day, I just ultimately hope that you had a good one, and that maybe you came away with some new information.